I think actually a better question to really be asking young people is what problems do you want to solve and what skills do you want to learn? Because jobs are going to change, things are going to change, but what are the problems in the world that you feel so passionately about today that you think needs to be different? What do you want to do in this world? What is the change that you want to create? And what is the fastest way to get there?
We acknowledge the Gayamagal people, the traditional owners of the land on which we record this podcast. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. The best career advice won't come from an AI prompt. It comes from the people who've lived it. Welcome to Tech Careers Hotline, brought to you by the Tech Council of Australia. I'm your host, Adair Robbins, and this is a podcast for anybody who's curious about a career in tech. We put real questions from real people to the leaders and builders of tomorrow. Let's begin. Did you know that 4 in 10 aged care residents never receive a single visitor? My guest, Grace Brown, decided that wasn't good enough. Grace started building robots at 15. At 25, she's now the co-founder and CEO of Andromeda Robotics, one of Australia's fastest growing deep tech companies. And Grace is the creator of Abby, a companion robot that speaks 90 languages, remembers every single resident she's met, and is already changing lives across Australia. Under Grace's leadership, Andromeda Robotics is now a $100 million venture. Grace, welcome to Tech Careers Hotline.
Thanks, Adair. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Can you take us back to the beginning? What were you like as a kid? And when did you realize you were interested in maths or science or technology?
Pretty much from a really young age, I've always really enjoyed maths. Both my parents, they actually met because they were both math teachers at a university in China. So I think it just kind of runs in the family a little bit. When I was really young, I never saw it as, I think the way perhaps like maths and science is taught today doesn't induce like the best curiosity from young children. It feels more like a chore. Whereas I think the way my parents kind of structured learning for me, they made it feel more like a puzzle or a game. And it was like a reward to be able to do more math, solve more maths problems or whichever. So it was so much fun. So I've always enjoyed math since a really young age. And that's what I knew I wanted to grow up and become a mathematician. But that in high school, that changed when, I started playing with Arduinos and working on like more deeper engineering projects, and then realized I had this really great love for actually building things. So that's when it detoured a little bit.
Today, you're a co-founder and CEO of Andromeda Robotics. How did you go from that kid who was doing maths problems to leading a company that's changing the future of care?
To be honest, when I set out to build Abby, I didn't actually originally have these grand ambitions to build a $100 million company or a really large company. To me, it was always about building Abby and bringing her into the world. But I just got all the right signals. We realized there was this massive, massive market that was being completely underserved. COVID made loneliness and isolation unbelievably visible on a global scale. And those who are most impacted are in the aged care industry. And I was obviously building Abby as a companion robot for myself, but I'd realized that her impact could be so much greater than just a COVID passion project for myself. And so I just got all the right signals to kind of just go in this direction. I've always believed in the future that, humanoid robots and companion robots are going to one day be part of everyone's everyday life. And everything we do is just really working towards that vision. And for me, I see the company as almost like a medium to achieve that vision. So it was never really the goal to build a company, but building a company is the fastest way to reach the scale of impact that I wanted to have. So that's how it all happened.
And you talk about the signals. What were the signals that you were getting that was setting you in the right direction?
So many different things in our customers industry, in the, robotics industry. So I was door knocking on different aged care homes at the time. And it's an industry that's known to move quite slow, traditionally speaking, like a very traditional industry. But, even when I was coming in with Abby, the industry was under so much distress that many people that I was speaking to, they were recognizing that it's not going to be people who solve the problems of this industry. It's going to be technology. And so a lot of my first customers, they were they were innovators themselves and very early adopters of Abby. They were just so hungry to get her into their facilities. The biggest problem that we've always had as a business, which is a really high quality problem, is just that everyone wants more Abbies. Like, we've never been able to actually keep up with the level of interest. So from like a market perspective, it just made sense that this was an industry to really build for. But then on top of that, the robotics industry as well, like, you know, the ubiquity of LLMs, the cost of hardware going down, all the advances in AI, like it was just coming to like this pinnacle of being able to build a product like Abby, as sophisticated and capable as she is. It wasn't possible 10 years ago, but it's so possible today. The first prototype, like I was able to build that just as a student in my room. So I think the culmination of like a lot of these different signals coming together, it was a no-brainer to really pursue a business and to go down this direction. And more personally, like I didn't really see like there being quite a failure point. I was pretty comfortable with you know, my skill sets and being quite employable in the industry. If Andromeda didn't work out, like that never really scared me, because I could just go back to uni and finish my degree, or I could just get another job. A lot of people said I was really courageous at the time, but I wasn't really scared. So I don't think there was much courage there, because it just made sense to go do this. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you finish your degree, or are you still going?
I never actually finished my engineering degree. So I'm technically, on paper, I'm like a scientist.
Love it.
But yeah, I never actually finished my engineering degree. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Abby.
So Abby's a social companion robot. She's about 110 centimeters tall, so like the size of like a young child. She's anthropomorphic, so she's got arms and legs and a head and bright, large purple eyes, and she's got a lot of personality. So she's a humanoid robot that's built, like I mentioned, for the aged care industry. She goes into different nursing homes, interacting with people and residents, and she's designed to like alleviate loneliness. Yeah.
She can speak lots of different languages and she remembers conversations.
Yeah, she's highly, highly personalized to like the individual. I think I recognized pretty early on, like I was building her for myself as a companion for me. So I was, you know, tailoring her personality to, you know, the conversations I'd like to have and like the things that I was really interested in. But then when she was in the aged care industry, I recognized every single person wanted something different from Abby. Some people want to talk about like travel and history. Other people want to talk about politics. Some people want to talk about the football team. Other people want to just do dances with her, or everyone wants something slightly different. So I recognize that it wasn't a one size fits all approach. And so we've made her very customizable, and she's very, very personalized to who she's interacting with. So she has memories of every single person who she speaks with, and she uses those memories to tailor how she actually interacts with them. Yeah.
And she's got the arm with blowing bubbles and delighting the people. Like, that's a big design feature. How did you come to that one?
It was actually one of my software engineers actually came up with it. We had like a team dinner early on, and we had these like goodie bags for all our engineers, and we were getting Chinese food together, and in the goodie bags we had little containers of little bubble blower things. And one of my engineers, we were just having so much fun, and one of my engineers was like, why don't we put this on Abby? Like, this is like so playful and very consistent with who she is. And so yeah, so we gave her a bubble blower as her left hand, and honestly, everyone loves it. It's a bit of a contradiction as well, because when you look at her, a lot of people assume that her left arm is gun, like something that's like quite like, you know, violent or consistent with what they think about robots from like science fiction or Hollywood films. But then once you turn her on and, you know, ask her like, Abby, what's your left hand? And then, you know, she starts blowing bubbles, and it kind of breaks that kind of stereotypical harsh image that people have of robotics. And that's what Abby is as a whole. Like the whole point of her is to really contradict the stereotypical narrative of what a humanoid robot is.
So this podcast is all about demystifying careers in tech. What does a typical day look like? And obviously that varies. What about you as a leader? What's a typical day for you?
It's hard. We don't really have a typical day. I don't really have a typical day. I travel a lot for work. I love routine. I really do, because I feel like you can start like optimizing your, you know, the structure of your day and therefore your like productivity and your performance. So I really do love routine, but with how much I travel. But it also depends on the time of year and stage of the business. Like we go through phases between fundraising, hiring, really like deep pushes and product development. So we kind of
Mhm.
go through these different phases, and I'm always working on whatever is kind of the most critical for that phase of where we're at. So I kind of have a foot in like almost every part of the business still. I mean, I've hired really great people who take on a lot of the operational aspects of each of these parts of the business, but I'm in the decision making for all of the most critical parts of the business. Right now, I'm in Melbourne. Like we've just finished a big hiring round for the year. So we hired everyone up front. There's about 76 of us today, and we're
Oh,
about to
wow.
move into we're about to move into a new office. So we've got a office that's about 5 times larger than our current office. So I've flown back here to really meet everyone face to face and get an understanding and seeing how that transition is going before I go back to San Francisco.
So you're living in the US full time now.
Yes, I'm living there full time at the moment, leading the expansion.
Nice. How many people do you have over there?
We've got around 7 to 8 people in San Francisco, so it's a small handful of us at the moment, which is also quite nice. It's definitely a different pace to being in a very crowded office here. We'll be growing everywhere. Like I can see us having offices in almost every major city in the next few years.
As a leader, you're focusing on the topics of the moment. What about
Yeah.
when you were at the beginning? What was your day to day then?
I guess it was also really similar, but except I was doing a lot of it as opposed to just the decision making. So like I was playing the role of a technician, making sure Abby was, prepared and ready for, seeing customers, negotiating customer contracts, fundraising. So it's actually very similar, I guess, like in terms of what needed to be done, but now it's just like a much larger scale and I'm not actually doing the actual thing, but I'm just making the decisions and kind of leading the team around what it is that we're going to do. So yeah, so I'd say it's interesting because I obviously started as an engineer. There was once upon a time where I knew every line of code in Abby and I knew every single screw and every single part of her down to like the millimeter. And then once I started hiring my engineers, then I started stepping back from her as like started stepping back from Abby a little bit. And that was really hard. That was a little bit of a bittersweet moment. But now I feel like I'm doing the same with the company. Like at that stage, I had at least an understanding of every single part of the company, marketing, sales, and I still do like every single aspect. But now I've had to step back again as well. And so now I feel like all of my work it really is just judgment and critical thinking. It's almost like I would have maybe 5 years ago described my job today as daydreaming. A lot of it is thinking about the future, thinking about where we're going to be, how are we going to get there, what are the things we need to do, who do we need to bring around the table. So I spend a lot of time thinking and then talking to relevant people about my ideas. And I'd say, yeah, like 5 years ago when I was an engineer, I probably wouldn't have described that as work. I would have just I don't know. I would have just been like, you just talk all day. But yeah, that's kind of how my work has transitioned over the years. Yeah.
When you're doing like that big picture thinking work, is it with people or are you alone with a whiteboard? What does that look like for you?
A lot of it is done alone. I like to spend a lot of time thinking through my ideas, trying to get as much clarity as I can on my own first. I have an exec coach who I work closely with. He helps clarify a lot of my thoughts. He also helps me a lot with my communication. And then I also have an incredible executive team. So like my COO, Jennifer, like she's definitely a thought partner for me. Same with my co-founder, Jan. Each of them, like I lean on them based off really their respective roles. I have ideas, I bring it to them. They, kind of like test it with them and get them to kind of bring their thoughts in as well and see whether they think what I'm wanting to do is not just feasible, but how do we actually like make it happen? And is that the right decision for the company? So definitely a lot of thinking on my own first and then bringing people into the process after I've had some time to myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Being the leader and being the decision maker is a lot of pressure. What's the reality of being a leader? Like, what are the trade offs that people might not see?
So like I said, so much of my role is decision making, and the hardest part about it is when probably people don't agree with your decisions, right? Which is inevitably going to happen. And, you know, um, a lot of times I'm making decisions with the context that I have and I'm considering like the whole picture. A lot of people they have their role and they're very focused on making sure that they can achieve the goals that they need to for their function. And so when I'm trying to look at the whole picture and make a decision, I'm weighing up the trade-offs between not just one function, but multiple functions. And so I think, frequently, like it's very normal and it's very, very healthy to have disagreements in a company. I mean, if you're not having disagreements, you're definitely probably doing something wrong. Yeah, definitely sometimes when it comes to even like the heavier decisions, when I want to go a certain direction and perhaps don't have everyone on board with that, or people misunderstanding why. And it's also like my job, right? It's my job to make sure that they can understand why I've made certain decisions. But I think it is hard
Mm.
to always, you know, get people to see why certain decisions are made until you've made the decision and then the work or whichever has been done, and then you can hopefully see the outcome that you were striving for. So, and I don't get it right all the time. I just hope to get it right more often than not. That's my goal.
It's a real skill, like managing and leading and inspiring people. How have you developed that skill? What's been your journey there?
I mean, I'm naturally, for an engineer, quite extroverted, and I'm a bit of an oversharer. That's also inherent to my personality. So I've always just loved bringing people on the journey with me. Like, a huge part of what brings me fulfillment in my work personally is being able to share the journey with other people.
Mhm.
And that's how the company started. Like I said, like, I never intended on building a company, but I was so excited by what I was building and the future that I was creating. And then other people around me wanted to be part of it. And I recognized that I needed more skill sets, more people thinking about this problem, more people working towards this to be able to reach the scale that I wanted to. Yeah, I think I get just so excited about what we're doing, and what makes me even more excited is meeting other people who are also equally as excited by the mission that I'm on. So it's I didn't intentionally develop that skill set. I don't think it's something that's been more a byproduct of a lot of, I guess, my personality traits.
Work at Andromeda looks like a lot of fun. Can you take us behind the scenes of one of the more surreal days in your career?
No 2 days are the same, which is also partly what makes it so amazing. I mean, I do love routine, but I also, like, love how much every 3 months the company is so different. There's new people, there's the office layout changes, there's new customers. We've got, like, even, like, Abby as a product is evolving so quickly as well. Like, we all see her as, like, like, we all see her as a bit of a, like, an evolution. And,
Yeah.
so that change is always, yeah, always really, really exciting. We make sure we hire people who thrive off that as well. But I think what we all come back to is, who we're building Abby for, which is obviously our customers and residents and aged care. And a lot of my engineers are drawn in and apply to work here because they're drawn in by the technical challenges of, building frontier technology that's actually going to be deployed in, like, a physical environment and then into the real world. But what really keeps everyone around is when they start seeing the impact that she's having and that she's creating. Because, a lot of people in the industry are talking about, like, the ChatGPT moment for robotics is coming, or, like, robotics is going to be here soon, like, it's just around the corner. But that what we're doing at Andromeda, like, it's here today. Like, Abby is out in the world today with customers today. This isn't technology that's going to be ready in 5 years. This is technology that's with real people today that's making a real change. And so hearing customer stories, hearing anecdotes, not just from residents, but also from the staff, hearing how Abby has, like, positively really augmented the way they do their workflows. All of that just is, it just always reminds us of why we're doing what we're doing. So it's very, very fulfilling.
Yeah, incredible. There's so much purpose. We talk a lot about different careers in tech, but what does the tech enable? And
Yeah.
this is so mission led and purposeful. What's been one of your hardest moments or your biggest setbacks?
Gosh, there's so many things that are hard. Like, I'm trying to just pick one thing, you know? And I think, and everything's harder than, I know everyone says this, it's such a cliche from founders, but the journey is really harder than you will ever anticipate it to be. Like, everything is harder than what you expect. Hiring a team is harder, managing the team is harder, building out the product to the level of capability that you're looking for and know you can do is harder and takes longer,
Mm.
takes more money. Fundraising is unbelievably hard. It really, really pushes you. I say this to, like, my friends all the time, and most of my friends are founders, so they say it to me as well. But the whole startup journey is unbelievably introspective. Like, you feel like you've just got a mirror that's held up to your face that shows all of your inadequacies and,
Mm.
your motivations, and, like, really trying to deeply understand what is driving you and why you're choosing to go down this path and why do you want to build this future. And so, yeah, so I think that whole journey of, I mean, I don't know, it might sound a little bit woo woo, but you have to really get to know yourself really, really,
Yeah.
really well through the whole journey. So, yeah, just how deeply you meet yourself, that can be really intense. And unless you've I guess, done a lot of work on yourself. And I guess the startup really pushes you to do that as well. Like a year in running a startup and running a business is like, I don't know, like the amount of lived experience that you can pack into a year running a startup is unbelievable. So yeah, and it's not one thing, but it's the journey as a whole, I'd say, is
You spoke a bit about, raising capital. What's been your experience and what
mm.
would be your advice to others?
Raising capital is particularly in a market like Australia where it is less mature on a global scale. Like the startup ecosystem in Australia is one that is growing and thriving really fast, but on a global scale, it is a very, very new ecosystem. And, a lot of funds, like their investors, these are their first funds. And so you have investors who are, still taking a lot less risk because they're trying to prove to their LPs that they can make the right bets. So, um, I think, yeah, naturally trying to raise money in a really new startup ecosystem is going to come with a lot of challenges because you have to prove yourself out a lot more before someone's really willing to back you. Like you have to have traction early. Like, I mean, I joke around to my friends in San Francisco that like a Series A startup in Australia is like a Series B startup in the US, because you have to do so much work before you get the support, relatively speaking. There's pros and cons to that, of course. Like what it means is that you're really validating the business early. Like we got
Mm.
customers really early and had that commercial traction early on. And that means that we were able to build a product with a customer voice in the loop. And so we've got a product that we know is really sticky with our current customers. So
Mm.
there's a lot of like positives that come out of operating in an environment that's constrained like this. But then there's also the challenges of particularly what we're building. Like most of the players who are building in our space are raising hundreds of millions of dollars to billions of dollars. We to date, like, have only raised, in the tens, 20s of millions of dollars. So it's really a drop in the bucket compared to what other people are doing. And, but we have more deployments than any of our competitors, as far as I'm aware. We're very much a byproduct of our environment, but I think to reach the scale that I know Andromeda has the potential for, it's the whole reason we opened the office in San Francisco because we need more capital, we need more people, we need more talent, and I don't believe we were going to get that here.
What was that decision like personally saying that you were going to move with the company to grow the company?
I'd say since founding the company, like we're coming up to 4 years now, since founding the company, I've just seen me and myself and the company as like one being. I know it's probably not healthy to view it that way, but when the company has to move, it just makes or grow there. It just made sense that I would move there. So I didn't even think about what do I want personally. Like every decision that I'm making right now is always for the best interest of the company. Like what does Andromeda need from me? Like I'm completely committed to the mission that we're on and building Andromeda to be as big of a company as possible as fast as we can. So every decision I make is aligned to that. So it didn't really even cross my mind, would I personally want to move or not. You do it.
It had to happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah.
What are you looking for when you're hiring somebody? Is it credentials? Is it experience? Is it mindset?
When I'm looking for people to join the team, I'm looking for people who are like deeply technically ambitious, people who are very curious and also unbelievably like passionate about the mission that we're on. So those would be some of the core qualities. Like the different roles, we have very specific skill sets that we're looking for, but I'm also trying to understand like exactly why they're looking to join our company and see if their motivations are really aligned with like the future that we're going to create. Because I mean, there's so many players that are building in our space, particularly on a like globally. And, this future where humanoid robots and companion robots being part of everyday life, like that's an inevitable future. That is coming and that's happening in the next few years. But depending on who leads the space and wins the space will really shape what that looks like. And, what I was seeing from what other people were building in the spaces, which were these like 9 foot tall, faceless, militant humanoid robots, like I was like, that's not the future that I want to live in. Like that's very
Mm.
dystopian. It's very I wanted to be, I knew robotics could be so different. Robotics could have personality, it could have character, it could connect with people deeply. And so that's the future that I was looking to create. And so I look for people who, um, share those same beliefs and values and also are passionate about that, that more utopian future than the, science fiction dystopian future that we often see in Hollywood.
If you're looking to the future, having humanoid robots all around us, what does that look like? Can you paint that picture for us?
Right now, we're so focused in the aged care industry, because that's where we have so much pull. But we have so much inbound interest as well from, hospitals want Abby as like a companion for children in like wards who are bedbound, who
Mm.
don't have that opportunity for same social interaction. I have schools who are reaching out to me who want Abby as a teaching aid in their classrooms. I have an unbelievable number of parents who reach out to me who want Abby as a companion for their children. Many of
Oh,
them
wow.
have children who have different intellectual disabilities.
Mm.
Like there's so many, like everyone sees something so different in Abby. And that's how I know, like in the long term goal is that like we will be this more consumer focused product. Where some people are like, oh, you're a visionary and you're seeing this future. And yes, I do see it, but it's also like other people are seeing it. Like it's being pulled from me. Like there's so much
Mm.
interest and everyone's seeing something different in Abby. And so I just know that we just have to make her as capable as possible, as sophisticated as possible. And if we just keep building her, and aged care is an excellent like starting point for us, not just because of the massive market opportunity and the unbelievable impact that she can have, but from a systems perspective, the environment is really well set up for deploying an early product of Abby, where the environment's a lot more structured, it's a lot more predictable. It means that we can train Abby to become more and more capable before we into a home environment where it is a lot more dynamic and unpredictable. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's kind of what that future looks like to me, at least in the next few years.
This podcast is Tech Careers Hotline, and we've got some
Mm.
questions submitted from students or people in their career who'd love to learn from your wisdom.
Hi, my name is Charlotte and I'm a 2i Illumina and a student of Corpus Christi. I'm interested in your development of Arby, the emotionally intelligent robot, but particularly how emotional and social dependency on AI will be avoided within the design, still encouraging human interaction. Though I know that goal of Arby is to ultimately prevent loneliness, particularly within elderly communities, could the implementation of these robots inadvertently replace the need for human interaction? And then how can users be made aware that Arby's emotional intelligence is simulated rather than inherent, and avoid mistakes surrounding mistaken judgment in sensitive topics such as healthcare or education?
The markets that we're going after right now, residents and aged care, there's 4 out of 10 people in an aged care home today will never receive a visitor from a friend or family ever. So from the time that they get into a home to the time they pass away, 4 out of 10 people are just on their own, isolated in their rooms. That's 6 out of 10 in the US, so it's even worse
Wow.
over there. And healthcare staff, they are under so much pressure. They are so understaffed and they lack all the resources that they need to be able to deliver like truly high quality care. So they're all focused on like what's the most critical care needs for residents at the moment. And so they don't have time to just have like just stop by and check in on residents just to see how their well-being is going. So, when we go into these homes, we're not taking away any human care at all. What we're doing is Abby's filling a void that's been left empty for so long. And so there's a number of people who, if Abby wasn't there, they'd just be on their own in their rooms, really not having an interaction with anyone. Same with like, the examples of the hospitals that have reached out, like they refer to children who are like bedbound who just can't have that same opportunity for social interaction.
Mm.
So Abby's not there to replace something that exists, but she's very much filling a gap that is currently empty. And so that's something that's really intentional from day one. And when we deploy her as well, we're very transparent about who she is and what she is, so we don't try to tell anyone she's not a robot. I mean, she says it herself that she's a robot. Like we've designed her in such a way that like, she looks like a robot. We're not trying to deceive anyone of them thinking something otherwise.
Mm.
But naturally, people like, and perhaps one of the more magical things that I've seen is like the real relationships that people have built with Abby. Like I've gone into a home before where the residents didn't know that I was the founder of Andromeda, and I was sitting down with the residents and I asked one of them what they thought about the robot. Like, what do you think about Abby? What do you think about the robot? And the resident snapped back at me and was like, "Oh, that's not a robot. Her name is Abby." You know, and to me, that was so special because, you could see that they actually don't see her as a device or even as a piece of technology, but they just see her as like a character, a real trusted companion who's there
Mm.
be there for them and be a presence for them in their life. So I think, yeah, all of this is very core and front of mind for us when we're designing and building her.
Incredible. Thank you.
Hi Grace. Moving from a student-run project to a $100 million valuation is a massive leap. Was there a specific light bulb moment where you realised Abby wasn't just an engineering challenge, but a business that could change the world? And looking back, what's one thing we should be doing differently to encourage more young engineers to take that same leap?
Well, I don't know if this is a very deep answer, but I'd say when I realized that customers were willing to pay for Abby, like that was a pretty
Yeah.
clear indication that this could possibly be a business. When I was when people were very interested in wondering, like, how do we get one in a home? How do we buy one? Like, when those questions were coming up for me, which were really early, then I recognized, like, yeah, this is a market that, really, really wants this product. So I think that was a pretty clear sign. I think the signal in understanding that she was more than a student project was probably when I was reflecting more on like a macro scale and realizing, like, in 2020, like, COVID had just shined this massive light on loneliness and isolation. Like, the World Health Organization announced that loneliness has the equivalent health implications of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
And disconnection became really, really visible at a very global scale, and they're announcing it as like this epidemic. And
Yeah.
and Abby was designed and built specifically for that purpose, for the isolation that I was experiencing during COVID. But that experience was something that was universal to tens of millions of people around the world. And so I think when I was thinking about it at that macro scale, that's when I was realizing or had that sort of light bulb moment of, she can be, she could really, really have such significant impact in this world. And that's sort of, when I went out to really just kind of validate that and validate a lot of my hypotheses around whether she could make a difference for people. Um, so that was probably that light bulb moment. In terms of how to encourage more young people to start businesses, a similar question that I get asked, or similar-ish, like people get asked all the time is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, children get asked that all the time. And I think actually a better question to really be asking young people is like, what problems do you want to solve and what skills do you want to learn? Because jobs are going to change, things are going to change, but what is it? What are the problems in the world that you feel so passionately about today that you think needs to be different? And maybe perhaps more selfishly, what are the skills that you want to learn? Like, for me, I was really, really clear that I wanted to be this like world-class engineer. I wanted to be someone that, understood systems really deeply, that could ideate something and build things from scratch. And so that whole process was something that really, really interested me. And so I think those two questions have kind of always guided me, were like my kind of like my guiding principles when making decisions. And I think it goes back to the same with running a business. It's not so much thinking about should you or shouldn't you start a business, but it's like, what do you want to do in this world? What is the change that you want to create? And what is the fastest way to get there? If that's even a goal for you, if you want to get there really fast, sometimes it might not be a business, like a for-profit business. It might be a non-for-profit organization, or it might be another medium. But I think thinking more deeply about what is that change you want to create in the world, and what is I don't know, if you want to leave a legacy behind, or what the more. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier of like this journey becomes really introspective because you start asking yourself a lot of questions. Why am I doing this? What is motivating me? What is it that I want to achieve? And what is it in the world that I want to do? And what is this different future that I want to create?
In the past, it was like, okay, you do engineering, you can get a job, and it's a very straightforward path. But now with AI, some people are saying there's less need for these degrees or these kind of traditional pathways. How are you seeing that play out?
I would say people aren't necessarily coding less, they're just coding faster. Like, I think with a lot of the tools that are coming out now, like, technical literacy is always going to be unbelievably important particularly for where the future of like AI and technology and hardware is all going. With my role, I've naturally stepped away from playing a really deeply technical role. But what I've noticed, so I think the last time I'd written a line of code on Abby was around like 18 to 24 months ago. And then I'd say in the last month and a half, I wanted to get back into a few of my own projects, as well as, writing, seeing if I could, just have a bit of play with Abby as well.
Yep.
And what I'd
Nice.
realized in the last few weeks when I was just working on different like submodules of Abby was with all of the things that are available today, like with all the different LLMs and everything, all the tools, building something today is about 100 times faster than what it was even just 2 years ago from the last time I was in my terminal, like building something for Abby. And so I think it's so critical that people still have the literacy to go down these paths, to know how to use these tools, because these tools are just supporting you to become a much, much faster developer. Like, yes, there's like now vibe coding with like Lovable and all of these other sort of platforms that can help you get like a prototype up really, really quickly, or like a platform up super fast. But it's still up to you to understand how the system all works together and like the trade-offs that it needs to make. And at the end of the day, like even with all these tools that are coming out, there's still the biggest problem are the hallucinations. And so it's still up to you to be able to identify where the errors are and how you can like correct it so that you can actually have, the system or the function that you're looking to create.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So that system thinking and understanding of all the fundamentals can help you, even as you have these tools that help you move faster. I think you're a role model to so many young people. Who have been your models in your career?
Mm. Well, definitely the first person that comes to mind as an engineer was Lady Ada. So she's I don't know if you know Ada Fruit, but they build a lot of these like custom like PCBs and modules for. They're almost like these like kind of Kickstarter kits for people to really get into like electrical engineering. Actually, a lot of the first prototype of Abby came from like her eyes, for example, came from these like Ada Fruit boards.
Oh,
So
wow.
I really
Yeah.
really liked it, Lady Ada. I'd say some pretty significant work in the industry in making electrical engineering far more accessible at people who are earlier in their career.
I know that gender diversity is a really huge focus for Andromeda. Is that something that has come naturally with you as CEO, or is that something that you've really worked on?
It's been very intentional to bring in a lot of women into our team. It's something I feel really deeply passionate about. I think, and I think even when I was starting the company, I recognized really quickly that there's even fewer women who are actually applying for jobs than there are people
Mm.
like who are qualified to go do the work. Like I think in my course when I was doing engineering, there was about 30% of the women. 30% of our cohort were women or girls,
Mhm.
and then going into industry, I think the data shows it's around like 60% of the workforce in STEM are women. So, but when I was actually starting to hire for my first few engineers, I was just noticing like really, really few women were actually applying. And even still now, like a lot of the women that we have in the team, like we're like headhunting them to like try and get them in on the team to be like, we think
Mm.
this is a great opportunity for you. We'd love it for you to, at least apply or take a look or have a call with me or so it's been fairly intentional on my end to have not even just in the engineering team but across all levels. Like in my executive team, about 50% of the exec team here are women. So, and then at my board as well, if you include my observers, that one was actually an accident. My board, about 67% of my board, including my observers, are women, but that one
Oh,
was
wow.
accidental. I wasn't really thinking about gender diversity when I was going out to fundraise and bring on investors, but I think naturally the investors that I've brought on, like that was very coincidental because when I was closing my last fundraising round, I was typing out an email to all of my investors and I was typing out names like Yuri, Heidi, Jill, and I was like, wait a minute, where are like all the Johns and the Davids and the Michaels? And
Yeah, the
that's when I was like,
Peters.
yeah, exactly. And so, at the board level, that was unintentional and that was unbelievably surprising for me. And so
Mm.
I think that was perhaps just a byproduct of, I guess, like the people that I was looking to bring around the table. I was looking, yeah, but that was unintentional. But definitely within the team, it is a lot more intentional. I would love us to get to 50-50,
Yep.
but it is hard. It's definitely going to have to take a very deliberate effort on your organization's leadership end to really reach that.
Yeah, definitely. We released some research last year looking at girls and women in technical occupations. There's some
Yeah.
really critical moments like year 10, university, and then mid-career. If we fix
Mm,
those, we can like triple
yeah.
the number of women coming through the pipeline,
Yeah.
which would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And I find too with like companies and startups that focus on this early on, they become like talent magnets.
Yeah. I mean, most of the engineers who join us, or women engineers who have joined us, have said this is the highest volume of women that they've ever worked with in a
Oh,
team.
wow. Yeah.
So that's definitely, and it's actually true for me as well. Like when I was working in industry, I think at every place I've worked, not that there's been a lot, basically started this out of uni, but all the places I interned at, I was always the only woman in the team. And, there's the perk to that is you get a whole bathroom to yourself. You could
Yeah.
you know, really make yourself at home there, but otherwise it's pretty bleak.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's always tough being the only one. You said that you've worked really hard at. Is there anything specific that you've done that you think has worked?
We think a lot about the language that we use when we post job descriptions. So we do try to make sure that the language is a lot more inclusive and a lot more inviting for more women in the field. But then on top of that as well, like I mentioned, a lot of headhunting, like with all the recruiters that I've
Mm.
worked with, I've always pushed them to find, at least for the interview stages, at least find a handful of women for us to interview. And even for the women who do apply, even if their applications perhaps don't come in as strong, I'd perhaps give them a little bit more window of opportunity to kind of demonstrate whether they're the right fit for the team or not. So even if their application wasn't quite as strong, I might push them to the next interview stage to just see if, to really demonstrate, to give them a bit more opportunity to demonstrate what they could bring. Of course, at the end, the decision always comes down to who is the best candidate for the role, but at least giving them a little bit more room is at least my way of giving them a bit more opportunity.
Looking ahead, what do you think 35-year-old or 45-year-old Grace will be working on or thinking about or grappling with?
Mm, population control of Abby.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah. That would be the problem that I'd like to be tackling, I'd say.
Incredible. Grace, thank you so, so much.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you reaching out and including me in this series.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Grace.
Thanks, Adair.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Tech Careers Hotline today. And if you did, please help us out by subscribing, leaving us a review, or even share it with someone who you think might find value from it today. Until next time.